Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to have another Xenomorph. Okay then. Well, anyways, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be getting into well, that's it's a little stressful, a little annoying, but anyways, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today's video is going to be about okay, that's it. I can't focus anymore. This has got to stop. Hi guys, Bran here. It's been a while since we've done a commentary video, and honestly, for most part, that's a good thing. That means usually there's not something that I feel like I need to weigh in on, so that I need to give my opinion about, because mostly trivial stuff like, oh, well, does Darth Vader fit in DBD? I think that's mostly a nothing burger argument. Like, you may feel like it does, may feel like it does. It's mostly a subjective thing, right? Like, who cares, really? But I just have something that I gotta get off my chest. And I want to ask the question, why does DBD feel so terrible lately? And I'm sure that you all have felt it, because before making this video, I made a lot of, let's say, verifications to try and figure out, am I just kind of having bad games? Am I in a rut? Is something wrong with me? But people continually come into my chat at twitch.tv/TheMrHeadache, and they're saying they're probably having the worst games they have had in recent memory. I personally have been having the most difficult, frustrating matches I've had on both sides in Dead by Daylight since the early 2020s when I first started playing this game, where the game was far more unbalanced and far more unfun. And the more I talk with other creators and DM them personally, I find that they are also admitting that they are having a very, very rough, unfun time with the game right now. There are even creators that I've never seen do variety suddenly start hopping on variety since the Springtrap release, which is kind of weird considering that we're at our highest player count of like, what, 100,016 or 116,000. That's how you would say that. 116,000 is our like new highest player count, right? Theoretically, that would imply that things feel good right now. But I would argue that the game feels terrible right now. So let's go ahead and talk about why. So firstly, we're going to tackle this from the killer perspective and then kind of cap it off from the survivor perspective, because it's mostly symptoms of the killer suffering that is causing the survivor suffering. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So I feel like basically every single match that I play, if I could summarize it, is just like, we have two gens off the cuff happen like almost immediately. Usually it's one gen. Sometimes a good team will get two gens like out the gate right away, which essentially forces you to play the rest of the match under a crunch, because you start the game with two gens already done or a gen and a half already done, which is very, very hard. It's a very hard ask to play a game from 3 or 4 gens. So obviously that's very difficult. And that stress that stress and pressure really starts becoming overwhelming very quickly. Even if you're playing more chill or more casual, your games are going by so quick, you're not even really getting to do the fun or casual things. I know I felt this personally because I've been trying to get better and learn Springtrap, but it feels like my games are going by so fast, I'm not really getting the chance to kind of, experiment and finagle with the power to actually get good at it. And this has been the sentiment that's been expressed by most people I've asked about their current games and their current climate about the game. Yeah, 1 or 2 gens right out the gate usually get done, and then I'm just stressing for the rest of the match. It feels like I have to play super mean, like hard camp, hard tunnel, do what I gotta do in order to make ends meet, every like BM strategy that you can do on killer, quote unquote, right? And if I don't, the match is a runaway train, because they just have so much early pressure that they snowball for the rest of the game. And no matter what strategy I do, whether it be hit and run, maybe I slug a tiny bit, it seems like the survivors usually just bounce back. It feels like I am powerless right now. And I think at first I was like, oh, okay, well, it's Springtrap, right? It's just clearly just like a lot of new people, or a lot of people are learning Springtrap. Springtrap has a fairly middling skill floor, not really an easy skill floor. And they have a high skill ceiling. So maybe it's just the new character blues, but then, as has been famously posted everywhere, the Nightlight kill rates are in the dirt right now. Killers have dropped like 10 to 15% across the board consistently. And I know Nightlight is, fan reported, so you got to take that with a grain of salt, but usually it's a good impression of a general character's impact on the game. Obviously, characters like Blight usually have higher kill rates, etc. So having everybody like dropping so starkly by like 10 or 15% is generally very, very worrying. And I believe I have it narrowed down to 3 main reasons that kind of created a perfect storm that suddenly made the game feel really bad. That being the healing effects, that being the survivor spawn logic, and the anti-go next. So let's go ahead and break those down, and then we'll get, like I said, we'll get into the survivor end at the end of this. So first off, the healing buffs that came through with the Springtrap chapter, I kind of been like, you know, seeping into the game for a long time. My good friend Revium, who is mostly known for being a trickster main, but also enjoys Survivor a fair bit too, famously was kind of like forecasting that like healing was starting to get really, really strong. Things like Resurgence, making it to where you can heal right off hook fairly quickly, and Relic came with some fairly altruistic perks that help with healing, or at least taking hits and that sort of thing. It seemed like the heal meta was looming again, a la old Circle of Healing, not current Circle of Healing, but old Circle of Healing, back where you could just run to a corner, heal yourself without any sort of trouble, and be right back into the game lickety split, and making the game kind of unnaturally efficient. We have seen this kind of meta essentially return to the game a la old Circle of Healing, because Botany had its medkit efficiency nerf removed, the Desperate got buffed, but a lot of healing perks either got buffed or released around the same time, essentially making it to where you can pop off hook and be healed, and I'm not even exaggerating, 2 or 3 seconds. I was playing some Survivor games today, actually, where I was running Resurgence, Botany, and a medkit, and I got off hook and healed myself while the killer was actively coming back to hook immediately. I literally got off hook, healed for like 2.5 seconds. I'm good. That is absurd. If you're not running leverage, essentially heals off hook are basically instant now. And this is awful, because one of the few things killers can do to bring back games when they're extremely tough is take advantage of survivors needing to heal. That can be coming back to hook to force them to break up the heal, make them play injured. This could be using hit and run tactics on somebody like Wraith, but keeping survivors injured is a big part of how killers play the macro game, which is the hardest part of the game, where you have to control the map, control the whole team, that sort of thing. Now that's just basically not a thing, because healing perks are so good, you just heal in 2 seconds. And even if you don't have the healing perks, somebody on your team probably does. So you end up in this situation where, well, anti-heal is not really a part of the game anymore unless you're running quad anti-heal perks. And even then, it's extremely difficult. You're fighting an uphill battle and probably would be better with actual slowdown. So all that time saved that they're not spending, you know, healing and getting back into the game is just going right back onto the gens. Often, you know, hooks are, you know, centered fairly close to gens unless the killer intentionally takes them farther away. So they come off hook, they heal in 2 seconds, and they're just immediately back on that gen. So while gen speeds are not actually faster, they're not spending as much time doing the healing part of the game. So they're just immediately back on the gens. And I will say, in behaviors, you know, defense and fairness to them, the idea makes sense. Let's make healing perks good, because healing perk equal altruism, and altruism not bad. But the effect in reality is less time healing means more time on gens. Match time is gen time. We sell a shirt with that, by the way. On Fourth Wall. It should be down in the link down below in my description. But yeah, self-plug aside, there's more gen time in the match overall now, because they're spending less time healing. And then it doesn't end there. So let's go ahead and get into our second part of this, which is the survivor spawn logic. Recently, survivors have been switched to where they would kind of spawn, like maybe there'd be 2 of them somewhere and 2 somewhere else, or there would be 1 somewhere and then 3 somewhere else. Survivors used to kind of spawn randomly, but mostly they'd be separated. Sometimes you would get those funny moments where you would all 4 spawn together. Usually I would do a meme there where I'm like, oh, I gathered you all here today to talk about our Lord and Savior Nemesis or something, right? But now survivors consistently spawn together, which was supposed to be a good thing. Like even I was like, oh, well, that should help a lot. And my name is Brandon. I was wrong. Because what has happened instead is that because survivors spawn together, they just very, very quickly approach the 2 closest gens. They split up into pairs, go on the 2 closest gens, and get those 2 gens done basically immediately, because gens get done faster if there's 2 people on them. And this is worse because on the killer end, if you don't have lethal or a character that has a lot of base kit info, if you don't find the survivors because they're all in one spot in time, then those gens are going to get done even faster, even more uncontested, because you can't interrupt them if you don't know where they are. The way it used to be was that you used to be able to search a vague area. If you guys have watched the match reviews, you know I mean the upside down triangle situation. If you search this area that out ahead of you where you spawn, you would probably find somebody, because survivors didn't all spawn in one spot. So even if you checked the wrong spot, usually at least one person was running into your field of view there. Now that's not the case. So you have to like really turn the map upside down to find where all the survivors spawn. And by the time you get there, if you're not a high mobility killer or somebody that has base kit info, those gens are probably going to be done by the time you get over there or close to it. Most times I start a game, the first gen usually mostly goes either uncontested or fairly close to uncontested, and then there's another one that already has progress on it, meaning that you are on average starting the game down 1.5 gens at any given point. Which, you know, if you ever approached anybody and asked, hey, would you like DBD to start at 3.5 gens instead of 5? Of course everybody on the street would say no. Absolutely not. That's essentially the situation we're in now, because the survivors essentially get a guaranteed early game. I made a video really long time ago on this channel talking about like the 2/3 rule. I think is what I called it. I called it the 2/3 rule. Whoever wins 2/3 of the game wins the match. So that being like early game, mid game, and then the end game. So like early game is like the first 2 gens, so 5 to 3 gens, and then the mid game is 3 gens to all gens done, and then the end game is obviously just the end game, anywhere between, you know, that and then the doors opening. Now the survivors essentially always, not always is an exaggeration, right? I'm a little upset right now. let's teeter the emotions back a little bit. The survivors always have a good chance and are encouraged to always win the early game, just with the way spawn logic is now. They have a very, very good chance on average to almost always secure that early game. So if we're looking at like 2/3 or whoever wins 2/3 of the match sequences or the match segments wins the game, they essentially almost always have one in their corner already just off the bat, which is extremely painful, and it forces you as the killer to either play extremely efficient or extremely mean. In a lot of cases, those are the same thing, that being, you know, tunneling, slugging, etc. I have had to tunnel and slug more than I ever have in any of my matches, and I certainly don't feel good about it. Not because I have any like issues with camping or tunneling, but because I just frankly don't want to try that hard in all my games all the time. Like, it's just, I don't want to do that. Like, it's just tunneling and slugging and stuff. It's not really fun, realistically. You're not chasing most of the team. You're chasing one guy. It removes a lot of the gameplay of the game for the sake of efficiency, which is fine when necessary, but I'm finding that it's necessary in so many more games now that the game is starting to become kind of a drag. And then finally, I think this is like the largest elephant in the room, and if you've seen Ott's posts about this, then you already know what's coming next, is that Anti-Go Next is actually really, really just doing a number on killer results. I think that we very much underestimated just the amount of people that were going next game to game. Even if we weren't actively looking and going, why did that guy quit? There was probably a guy who at least went second, or a guy that gave up on hook when you weren't looking in most of your games. Now that's not the case, because the game prevents that. And even if you hit second, you have to go through like what, 4 or 5 of the missed skill checks to even go next. In that case, somebody's probably going to come and get you. And I think that this is really showing the damage. Now that's a lot of damage. Did the damage that the Go Next epidemic created, because for such a long time now we've played the game in a way that, you know, seems to make sense to us and rewards us for skillful plays, for, you know, good macro game. And really what was happening is that in the background a lot of people were just quitting, and that's the reason those things were efficient, even though those things require skill. Realistically, the only reason we were winning those games, despite the fact that we were doing skillful things, is because people were at least going one extra hook stage in our game. Not even most of the team, but just at least one person usually was going first, second, giving up at some point, right? So I feel like all of our kill rates are extremely inflated, because I don't think we fully grasped the full extent of how frequently that was happening. Like, sure, we were frustrated by it, but I don't think we really grasped just like quantitatively how much that was happening, and then qualitatively how much it was impacting our games. Because now that people are essentially, for the most part, forced to stay in the match unless they just run up to the killer and, you know, get slugged out, those people get back on gens, and gens are already really efficient as it is. So the fact that those people are now going to be in the game means they're just going to get back on the gens, and the gens are going to get done far quicker. So once again, returning to like, you know, the heal speed thing that we talked about earlier, it's not necessarily the gens are actually faster. It's just that Timmy 2-hook give up guy is going to actually get saved before he gives up on his second hook. And so I don't know, I guess I'm still in the game still. So I'll just get on this gen with this guy that just saved me and actually get out this time. And I think it just says something like kind of like ridiculously haunting about the game, that like, wow, the only thing holding everything in balance was people just having a penchant for giving up for zero reason. That was the thread that was holding all this together. That's what was making our matches actually make sense. And they're like, oh, well, if I play skillfully, most times I win. That was all it was. That was the thread holding things together, was people just not quitting. That's all it took for matches to become frustrating. Of course, that's an exaggeration. We just talked about 2 other reasons that matches became frustrating. But like, that's all it took to make things suddenly a lot more terrifying, was people actually sticking around. That's depressing. And I feel like overall, just before we get to the survivor part, just in summary, I feel like any one of these changes alone, you know, we could adjust to, right? And it'd be all right. Healing being super buffed, not great, but I feel like people would find a way around that. The survivor spawn thing, frustrating. I feel like people would find a way around that. People staying in games and just generally being more efficient because they're not going next, we could find a way around that. But all 3 at once kind of creates this perfect storm of like, oh no, but this, oh no, but this, oh no, but this. And now everything has become very overwhelming in a very short period of time. And it's not a simple just revert one change that behavior thankfully does, which I appreciate. I would know that personally. Thank you for the Xenomorph thing. It's not as simple as just flipping the switch back on one change. There was 3 at the same time that were extremely devastating. Nor would I want by the way, I want to make this absolutely clear, because I can already see the YouTube comment. I think anti-go next is a good thing. Is there a side effect that makes gens more efficient? Absolutely. I think anti-go next is still a good thing. Making that clear. But as a result, it's just like really overwhelming and really jarring to have all that just slam the game all at once with no sort of like any sort of quality of life change on the killer side to make the killer side feel better in tandem with buffed healing, people staying in games more, and essentially being down a gen and a half every single game. There's been nothing on the other end to really supplement that, so it's just, your games just got harder with basically no bonus to you. And a lot of people are still fine with this. I find that I feel like I had mentioned at the beginning of this video that I had asked a lot of streamers how they felt, how their games were going, and about 70% said, yeah, this sucks right now. I had 30% say no, I mean, you know, it's whatever. But those people, I found a commonality among them was that, like, usually they play chill. Usually they don't really play to win often unless it's like a viewer build that they want to succeed on, just to make them happy. By and large, they don't care if they lose. So I don't think that this is going to impact them as much, because they're probably used to having games go poorly just because they're throwing for a funny shot or they're going for a chase with somebody they are having fun chasing. They don't care about the result nearly as much. So I think all this just all at once is just kind of like the perfect storm that's making things so frustrating, because it wasn't just one thing, it was like 3 at once. I think it's not even like it's like, I was talking about this on stream today too, was that I feel like the obvious answer and takeaway to this is like, well, if Survivor's the OP role, just go play Survivor. You know, I feel like that's obviously the takeaway a lot of people will have. But it's like, I played Survivor today, and what's happening, like I talked about in the second point that I made, is that because the games are so frustratingly difficult, most killers are just going out of the gate totally at 4 or 5 gens now, because, you know, they're like, okay, well, if you're gonna have an early snowball, I need an early snowball. If you're gonna just be a gen and a half ahead, I will just have somebody out of the game super early so I can be ahead. So like, you go into Survivor games where you're not coordinated. You go into Survivor games where you're not coordinated, you're not all running super meta perks, you're gonna get blasted. You know, heaven forbid you actually go solo queue or anything like that. Like, your matches are gonna be rough too, because the killers are already adapting. I had a lot of people running triple quad slowdown already out the gate and tunneling at 4 or 5 gens and or camping the hook. I had a spring trap today that just non-stop came back to hook using the doors to get somebody out of the game super early. And it's just like, you can't really blame him. you can't really blame them considering the circumstances they're under, but regardless, that doesn't make the answer doesn't make go over to Survivor fun, unless you are playing with like like at least a trio and you all agree that, hey, we're trying and run good perks. So it's not like just go play Survivor is the answer. It just kind of depends on your situation. Go play Swift is the answer. Like unironically, the answer is go play Swift. Go Swift up, you idiot. Or don't play the game. I don't know. I sat on this for a while, and like I said at the beginning of this video, I tried to make sure it wasn't just me. I wasn't just overacting and having a bunch of bad games, but person after person after person coming into chat saying their games are awful and hard. I go to plenty of other streamers' streams, and they're having hard games. I have people that don't even do variety doing variety all of a sudden in the middle of like Springtrap release and anniversary. It's like something's wrong here. Something's wrong, and if there's something that I've been away from for a while, but I've made a YouTube career out of, is speaking my mind when I'm upset about things. So yeah, it made me pretty upset, and it's pretty frustrating. It makes the game grating, I think is the summary word I want to say. The game feels very grating to play right now. Even the games that I'm winning and not having a good time. like if I pull out a 3 or 4K, but like I essentially had to play that game under that 3-gen crunch, right? Like I had to play with, oh, well, those first 2 gens just went, oh, great. Like, I didn't really have a good time. I kind of stressed the whole time instead. So the game feels very, very grating to play right now, I think. So I don't know. Hopefully there's some changes made. Either revert some of the things that happened, or at least give supplementary changes to the other side. Because either way, this is not healthy. This is not healthy at all. Like what is happening to the game right now is unhealthy, and it's kind of like forcing the game more towards the direction of everybody has to play as efficiently as possible, or else you almost don't get to play. And I don't like that. That is a very, very bleak future, and I feel like we should avoid that. Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think that the state of the game right now is very, very stressful and frustrating? Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, that's it for today's video, friends. Hope you enjoyed getting a commentary video again. It's been a while. But other than that, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.